Welcome back, listeners, to episode 7 of Learning from Friends. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide on this lovely venture that we continue to be going on together. It should be now officially 2022 when this episode gets released. We're recording in 2021, right here before Christmas time. But it's super exciting to kind of wrap up recording sessions here for 2022. And before we get going into the session today, my mother gave me a phenomenal quote when she was thinking about, this project I'm working on and previous projects I've worked on. She goes, I just needed to share this with you. And I was like, okay, what quote do we have? It is from a book called A Boy Like You by Frank Murphy and illustrated by Kayla Heron. Shout out to you guys. It's a wonderful book. But the quote goes as follows. Ask people to tell you their stories. Then listen hard. Stories connect all of us. They're part of what makes us who we are. Don't forget to tell your own story too. I mean, that quote hit me so hard, and it is a great reminder of why I do this podcast and over the years have sat down and collected so many stories from people, because it is the secret of life is to listening from others and learn from others in order to become a better person and to continue life forward for it. And today I have a coworker of mine that I'm extremely excited to sit and talk with as we start this episode, which is, his name is Ryan Cherry. He has an extremely love for music. In his ventures of being a guitarist, he has a huge passion for helping people take care of their bodies with his workout training regimens. He actually gave me one, which has helped me out a lot. And he has a lot of that knowledge to share with us. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure to have any guest on here. Can you describe yourself to our audience here?
Let's see. Describe myself. Well, first of all, I'm a teacher. I think Cade mentioned as well that we are co-workers at the same school. I'm a special education teacher. I love fitness, as he kind of pointed out, and I also love music. I'm a guitar player. Guitar is not the only instrument I play. It's my main instrument. I like to play drums too, and I can play piano, kind of dabble in piano, and a couple other things. I've messed around with the ukulele before. But yeah, I love music. I have 2 sons, 2-year-olds, and a beautiful wife. And we live in Georgia.
Your cat's going to be upset that you didn't.
I forgot about my cat. Now we have a love-hate relationship, more on the side of hate, because she despises me, and any chance she gets to bite me or scratch me or stare me down, she will take. I'm convinced that maybe she's the spawn of Satan himself, but I digress.
Wow, that's some pretty intense information right there. Now I feel worried when Zinzin or Zorro comes down the hallway and says,
your cats are cute. Mine looks adorable, but she hates me with a vengeance.
So what we're going to discuss with Ryan today as we go through this is an extremely important topic to me as well, because I am a musician, not as great of a musician as Ryan is over here, but I love talking about these topics to it, and it's going to be hard for me not to really interject here and make my little commentary, because this is not my platform. This is Ryan's platform to be able to share with us, but I may make some comments here and there. So if it seems like I'm a little more talkative this episode at times with it, I apologize. Hopefully I don't interrupt his story.
Well, please interject when you want to.
Thank you for the permission in advance for it. Now, Ryan, how do we know each other? What's your memories of us kind of knowing each other the first time we kind of met?
Well, I think this kind of goes back to a previous person you had on the podcast who was also a coworker. Well, I guess technically still a coworker. A couple episodes back, but we know each other from the school we work at. We both started off as paraprofessionals in the classroom. Well, actually, I started off as a substitute, and then a paraprofessional, which is a classroom helper in a special ed room, left, and I ended up taking his job. So I started off in that realm, and you did as well. And then we kind of both moved into lead teaching roles eventually. So that's how we kind of know each other from starting out there. Lots of crazy stories from that season of my life. But it's been a blast.
Now, I'm trying to remember here, were you a one-on-one or were you a classroom para when you got hired in? Because I was a one-on-one.
Yeah, so I guess for the viewers, and this was described in a couple episodes back, but a one-on-one para is tied to a specific student based on their needs. So they might require more assistance or support than another student may. So I did start off as a substitute for a one-on-one para who was out because she was injured, with a student who was in a wheelchair. And then another parapro who was a one-on-one for a different student who had some pretty significant behaviors left, and I took over that position. So I was a one-on-one, and then the lead teacher ended up getting promoted, and when that happened, my principal offered me the job for the lead teaching role of that same classroom. So
it's quite amazing to think how worlds can kind of cross in the strangest of ways, that if it wouldn't have been for that, I would have never met Ryan, with that small little incident of him going, hey, I'm going to start substitute teaching. What drew you to substitute teaching? Because for a while you were working, you have a journalism degree, isn't it?
I have a very strange, trajectory of how my life has gone since after college. So I went to school, University of Georgia, for journalism, actually emphasis in magazines. So the Grady College of Mass Communication in journalism.
We will take sponsorships if you want to support us.
I used to have the sticker on the back of my car.
We are both alumni here, so
exactly.
Any sponsorship would be great.
Or season tickets or whatever you want to do. Remind me of the question again. I just lost track of where I was.
We were talking about how your road was to be able to get into education.
Yeah, so studied journalism. I didn't end up going into journalism after college. I took basically the first job that I could get. There's a guy that went to my parents' church who was the president of Mondelez International, which is it's an overarching company that is over Cadbury and Nabisco and a bunch of different food distributions. Yeah, however you want to say it. I was part of so I joined in with the Nabisco division, started off as a merchandiser, and in Georgia, in Alpharetta, Alpharetta and Cumming, I was working for a sales rep there. And then a sales rep position opened up, and I moved to Huntsville, Alabama for a brief stint, I guess, from like about October to January. It was not my cup of tea. I did a lot of traveling all over North Alabama. My territory went from Huntsville up to like Fort Payne in center Alabama, which is way up there. So I met with a bunch of different managers at places like Walmart and Kroger and Piggly Wiggly and what's the other one? Food Lion and different places, Ingalls. So I called on those customers, and then kind of decided that wasn't for me. I studied journalism. I think in college I thought I enjoyed writing, but I really think I kind of fell in love with the music scene in Athens. And
we all do with Athens. It's
Athens, Georgia.
That's what drew me to Athens.
And for those of you who may not know about Athens, Georgia, there's a lot of musicians that have come out of Athens, Georgia, like REM, the B-52s, Cade, who else?
Dead Confederate.
Yeah,
was another major one. Drive-by truckers.
Yeah, tons.
Yeah, I mean the list goes on and on.
So,
Big Chestnut.
So I got kind of drawn into that because I thought I wanted to be a musician. So I was like, this journalism thing, I'm going to pick this because my parents want me to go to college. Hopefully my parents aren't listening to this. But
if they are, welcome. Good to have you.
Welcome. They'll probably smack me upside the head for saying that.
Good to have you as a guest.
So I think I was really into playing music. I was in a couple of different bands and playing with guitar for a couple different, like a singer-songwriter, in two different bands at the time. So I was playing at places like the 40 Watt, and there's a bunch of different bars there at the time. They're not there anymore. But
that's a continual turnover in Athens. It's a continual of the bar may be there for like 5-10 years or maybe 2 years and then is gone and the names change constantly. And
there were some really cool ones there too. Like there's a place called the Green Room, and trying to think where else we played. There was a place underground. I think it was called the Grit or something.
No, the Grit was the restaurant.
So there was a place anyway. We won't go into all that.
Yeah, Mike, you could go on for hours about an entire podcast about how the names of restaurants and stuff in the area
and gigging places. But yeah, so I think I was probably more into the music scene and just kind of picked journalism because I knew I enjoyed writing. I thought, oh, hey, I'll do emphasis in magazines. Maybe I could write for a music magazine or that kind of thing. And I really didn't think about what that would look like once I got out of college. So,
as most of us don't, unfortunately.
But anyway, so fast forward, I was working for Nabisco and kind of decided that wasn't the right position for me. I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I recently gotten engaged to my wife, and she started working in Cartersville, Georgia. Or not Cartersville, sorry, Rome, Georgia. She lived in Cartersville, Georgia. She started working in an outpatient clinic because she's a speech therapist. And it was every weekend or every other weekend driving back and forth between Huntsville and there, and it was a lot. So I moved back to Georgia. And actually, my uncle was a general manager for a Nissan dealership for a very large chain in the area. And I started working for him in sales at first, which was not... It was a lot of hours.
It's not for everyone.
It was not. It got me back to Georgia, and it was good experience. I worked really, really hard. Worked a lot of hours, like I said, and it's a real retail job. So, and then I got into internet sales, and I guess they call it internet sales, but there's marketing involved too. And so I did that, and the hours were better, but I still worked weekends and whatnot. So I did that for about 5 or 6 years. Maybe 5 years. Then decided, hey, this is not for me. I think what I want to do is teach. And so my mom suggested that you really need to see if you want to do this. So you need to start subbing before you make a giant leap. So and shift careers.
Any teacher that decide that they want to do this, make sure that you spend time substituting. Ask teachers and ask school districts, can you go into the classroom and sit and observe before you start going into college as well, and doing the observation, investing in the classes. There's a lot of behind the scene works that makes a classroom work.
And that was actually a very smart thing for her to suggest, or wise thing for her to suggest, because I would not have known that I wanted to teach special education, or specifically the area I teach in, which is I teach children with mild to moderate intellectual disabilities, autism. So yeah, I wouldn't have known that if I didn't start subbing, because I also subbed in a couple of other classrooms, and I realized that maybe that wasn't so much for me, and that my people were where I'm at now. So I started subbing. I found out about a program that Georgia offered or offers called the Georgia TAP program. It's an alternative teaching program. And once the parapro that was also in the classroom left, I started subbing in the very classroom I'm teaching in now, which is pretty amazing. It's the first sub job I ever took.
A very rare experience to be able to.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, once you're subbing in a classroom and then basically getting to take it over, unless something happens medically with somebody typically, but not whenever they're basically training you to walk into that position the next time around. That's very rare.
And so I got involved with this program, and you really can't begin the Georgia TAP program until you have a lead teaching position, because they give you a provisional certification, or the county will, to teach until you finish the program, and then you'll come out with your professional certification. So I pursued that. I was parapro, and then once I officially got the lead teaching position, then I was able to actually start the cohort. And so fast forward 2 years later, I'm here now. This is my first year being done with the program completely, and
making the big paycheck now.
Huge, massive increase.
It's a big difference. It is a big difference once you have that on your license.
So fast forward to now, I'm teaching in the classroom, and it's funny. I would have never thought in 100 years I'd be teaching special ed. Especially when I was a freshman in college. So
times, they are a-changing.
That's right.
Like, I've had 4 or 5 different classrooms over the years that I've worked in and taught in and stuff, and it's just, I never imagined that I'd have this much maneuverability in essence for it. So it's just kind of part of life here as it continues to go along. Ryan, what is a funny story that you want to share here with us that we kind of can give each other?
So let me think here. There's a couple actually.
I have a worry about one of these.
I'll start with one that's a little less embarrassing for Cade. And it's
My life is full of embarrassment, so it's okay.
so Cade is from Cherokee, or excuse me. He's
Cherokee
from
County.
the town that we live in. I just gave away where we live.
Well, no, they all know where we're at. If they listen through, they can figure this all out. We're in the internet age. You can search someone's name and find out where they live. It's okay. Just don't show up at my house. I will be very upset and sad.
Yeah, he's a very, very funny sign at the front door that says "No soliciting. Don't make it weird." I love that. But so anyway, one day I asked Cade to kind of show me around downtown Canton, which is where we live, and it's kind of an older town. Started off as like denim factories and cut.
Well, we did have the cotton mill for a while, which was the big establishment. Before that, we had a rail line that was coming through. I mean, you can go on and on. Before that, the Native Americans were here for a long while. There's a long storied history that really previously I should have had my previous guest, Will, kind of go into detail on that since he worked with Cherokee County Historical Society. But I digress. Go forward with what you're talking about Cherokee County
So
history.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, this was probably October, maybe 2019.
Sounds about right.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID around Halloween time.
So I wanted Cade because I'm weirdly into ghosts. I don't really believe in them, but I love the ghost stuff and I love the ghost adventures because I think it's just absolutely ridiculous, but it's fun, and I like being scared at the same time. So Cade was like, "Let me show you the cemetery here." So one day we decided to go to a restaurant, get some beverages.
We had some lunch. We had some late dinner.
Exactly. And then he brought me to the cemetery, and I got out my phone, and it was misty and foggy, and he scared the daylights out of me a couple times.
It was really interesting of like I really didn't go into too crazy of stories for it, but I mean, like, I think it was just the atmosphere that really got you.
It was foggy and like misting. It was the perfect storm.
Yeah, it was.
I was hoping I'd see an orb on my camera or something when I was videotaping it with my phone. But
there was a really cool photo that I wish you kind of would have kept. That was I was way off in the distance, and you took a photo, and like I was like an orb at one point. I wish you would have kept that one.
So yeah, that was a fun night. And it was really cold and misty, and just it was perfect. The next story. This one's pretty funny. So
yeah, I'm a little embarrassed about this, but at the end of the day, it happens. It's live.
So this was another. I think it was another winter story. So this was during COVID, I believe.
It was. I was getting acclimated to starting kind of visiting people after vaccinations had been given out and stuff like that.
We got together with another friend, hung out, had some food and beverages, and something didn't sit well with Cade's stomach that night. And anyway, so fast forward, we're hanging out. He's like, "I don't feel really good," and he's like, "Can I hang out and just take a nap in your driveway in my car for a little bit before I leave?" And I'm like, "Dude, you can stay in my guest bedroom."
It was already close to midnight by this point. It's close to midnight. I know he had his kids went to bed, and he was going to bed, and I just didn't want to wind up messing up opening and closing the doors. So that was my whole thing why I stayed in my car.
So Cade goes out to his car. I'm like, okay, fine. He goes out to his car. I guess he lays down for a little bit. I brush my teeth. I get ready for bed, and I lay down. It's like almost midnight, 11:45, and my phone bings, and I see the blue light. I'm like, who's texting me at this time? And I take my phone, and Cade sends me a text that says, "You might want to get your garden hose. I puked all over your driveway. See you later."
It wasn't the driveway. It was the goalie, which is like
at the end of the driveway.
At the end of the driveway that's supposed to wash things down.
Now, I'll say, I was like, I'm not doing that tonight. I'll get to it in the morning. The next morning, I've never seen so many apple chunks in my life. It was like he had 7 apples.
I think it was apples and pork rinds. I think it was a mixture of apples and pork rinds.
Oh, man. It was brutal.
Yeah. Hey, I would have washed it out, but the problem was I walked to the side of your house, both sides, and I couldn't find the water hose. And so I had no clue. I found the spigot, but I couldn't find a water hose to attach to it. So I was like, I'm not just going to randomly try. I'll just send him a message and go home.
Well, in all fairness to Cade, I mean, it would have been a little strange to have some guy out there with a garden hose at 12 o'clock midnight spraying off a driveway. So
This is true. And for those listeners that also don't know, the next morning, I have to get up and run a bread route on Sunday mornings. And I had been up, my stomach was sick, and I'm like, I need to get home in order to make sure that I get some sleep and get my clothes ready to run the bread route in 3.5 hours later. So that was part of the reason why I was like, okay, I'm not going to wake him up. I'm not going to mess. I'll just send him a text message. It'll be fine. I didn't realize how much it was in terms of
it was quite copious.
for sure. A funny story I'm not going to go into like full in-depth story on like Ryan's which is pretty awesome. But Ryan is very forgetful. It's a very true statement. The least. And he'll lay something down and he'll lose it pretty quickly. So many times in the classroom, just walking by, it's hilarious watching him look for something. Or, hey, like, wait, I'm supposed to be here today? Or, wait, that paperwork was due last week?
Or it'll be like, I'll set my coffee cup down and forget I set it down and go get a new one and fill up more coffee. And there's like 5 coffee cups throughout the classroom by the end of the day. And
he used to be able to get away with a lot more being the new guy at school and being young. And it was we had the nickname for him as Goldie. And as time went on, he no longer became the golden boy as he continued to have the same mistakes over and over, being late and not clocking in and things like that. So we make the joke every so often about that. Oh, Goldie. How's things going, Goldie? You know, but it's fun. But we call him around school. I've always called him as Cherry. So like it's kind of like with my friend Joseph Mize, I'll call him Joe. But with Ryan Cherry, it's always been, hey Cherry, what's up? Because how many people do you know in your life that have the last name Cherry?
That's true.
Kind of cool.
I guess my New Year's resolution should be to get a planner or an agenda so I can write things down.
This is true. Hey,
you should see my alarms on my phone just to remember things. It's pretty incredible. But
that's
anyway.
Intense. We digress. Now, going into our topic for today, one of the multiple topics today is your guitar work. I had heard several times you talking about, oh yeah, I play guitar, this, whenever you were first starting out. And I was like, okay. Like I know a couple of guitarists over the years I've sat back and played and listened to them. And I go, okay, what are we looking at here whenever he decides to pull out a guitar? And next thing you know, I mean, this guy's going at it. And I'm looking and I go, okay, this guy can really sit back and play. How did the craft find you, or did you find it?
I think I went after guitar. So when I was 11, I did ask for a guitar for Christmas. So I wanted to play guitar. At first I wanted to play drums. I used to set up like in my garage. My mom had like a tennis ball holder, which was, I don't even know how to describe it. You'd bring it to the tennis court, and it like folds out, and it's like a big metal apparatus anyway. So I'd set that up as like my hi-hat cymbal, and then I'd have like some cans and some different stuff in my dad's old like bench press bench as the seat, and make a drum set. But then eventually I decided, hey, I think I want to play guitar instead. So I got an electric guitar when I was 11.
What was the first electric guitar?
The first electric guitar, cherry red. For real, cherry red.
Okay.
Squire, which is Fender's kind of beginner. We'll say beginner.
Their basic model.
A little bit cheaper. A lot cheaper.
Like a lot cheaper.
Like it came with a guitar amp and the guitar for like $200. So I mean,
gotta love those
pretty
starter
cheap.
packs. Gotta love the starter packs.
I had that guitar for years too, and I did all kinds of stuff to it and gutted it, and it was pretty cool after I got done with it. But so yeah, it was a Squire Stratocaster, which I'm still playing Strats. So a Stratocaster, for those who don't know, you've probably seen it everywhere. So whenever you think of electric guitar, you might think of a Stratocaster. It's got a very specific headstock. People say it kind of is shaped like a woman.
Yeah.
Like hourglass, like pear-shaped with these kind of horns at the top. But anyway, so that was my beginner guitar of choice, and I kind of stuck with that same shape guitar for years after. So, and that kind of happened due to some of the people I was influenced by that played a Stratocaster. So,
speaking of influences, like John Mayer is your man. Like that is your man crush and a half.
John, if you're listening, Send me one of your guitars. Signed.
Or just call him and talk to him.
Just call and talk to me. Say hi. That's all you have to do.
So this is a shout out for John Mayer too. If anybody knows John Mayer, and connect them with Ryan Cherry for, even if it is for like 10 seconds, or you can pay for what are those things called, where you can do like the, not Instagram, but the videogram where it says like happy birthday or something that you can send to somebody, and it's celebrities. I don't know if he has one.
Oh, I don't know what it's called, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, maybe somebody can do that for you. I don't know how much he charges.
I'll get into some of the cool social media stuff with that, but anyway.
That's something I definitely want to hear about, because that's changed music a lot over the years. But how did John Mayer affect you as a musician? Because that guy, I mean, being a electric blues guitarist, I mean, he took styles
in 2021.
Yeah, he took styles from back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and like in 50s all the way up, and like he's evolved it to a whole nother level. And watching him perform is just exciting and thrilling to all levels. But give me your take. Tell me about how he connected with you and what really he does for you as a musician.
So I think maybe I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for all guitar players, but I started off metal. I was like, I want to be a shredder, and I want to play really fast. And
so Dimebag Darrell, that was your man?
Yeah. Well, I guess Van Halen, but
okay.
I mean, Van Halen's a different animal. His was it was shredding, but there was also a lot of like soul and just dynamics to it that made it so interesting. But I'm talking about like shredder metal, like super fast guitar
running the
playing.
scales,
yeah,
really
running the
hitting
scales
place.
And that kind of thing. And I got really into hardcore screamo for a little bit. Still had a Fender Stratocaster, which is not the right guitar for that.
Not for that genre, but that's a topic for another day. Maybe we could talk specific guitars for specific tones and stuff for days. But
I think also I kind of delved into so here's kind of the trajectory. There's that word again. I like that word.
It is a good one.
Of how I got to John Mayer. So my dad was a big Eagles fan, and classic rock. So Eagles, like kind of that Southern blues sound. So Joe Walsh, which was one of the guitar players from the Eagles, was just a phenomenal, or is still alive, a phenomenal guitar player and blues and slide playing. And he kind of incorporated that into this Southern pop sound, or Southern rock pop, which was very popular at the time in the 70s, late 60s, 70s. And so I guess you could say the Rolling Stones kind of did the same thing. They took blues and they kind of morphed it into what was popular music at the time. And Led Zeppelin too. Like the song Rock and Roll is 12-bar blues.
All great musicians take and borrow and evolve in some way. They add something more to it or reintroduce something that hasn't been around for a while.
And I think what drew me to, I guess, blues playing in general, I'll talk about some other influences that came later, in blues and in like older rock, is it wasn't always perfect. And a lot of the metal guitar and stuff that I heard it sounds like a robot is playing the guitar because it's so perfect. Am I too close?
No, you're good. Okay. I do sound tweaking as we're going along, and he's looking over being very self-conscious of, am I too loud? Am I not too loud? Like, it's all good. So I will tweak throughout the entire episode, so do not worry about that.
So I guess you could say like that sound of metal or is so technical and perfect, and they're running up and down the scales really fast, and it just sounds like a robot's playing. But then hearing some of these guys like Joe Walsh or I'm trying to think of somebody else later on, Stevie Ray Vaughan, who was a great blues guitar player, and just hearing that, hey, like it's okay to kind of have this wild sounding, like almost like voice-like sound, and it's not always perfect. Like Jimi Hendrix, like you could pinpoint times when maybe he made a mistake, but he ran with it because it sounded cool, right? So I just liked kind of that wildness to it and that kind of imperfection of it, and also kind of making it sound like a singer. I felt like blues always kind of did that.
Make the guitar sing.
Yeah. So it wasn't as technical. It sounded like it was an extension of the person. So like Jimi Hendrix was a singer, but his guitar was an extension of his voice, in my opinion.
Oh, entirely. I agree with you 110%.
Or Stevie Ray Vaughan, same thing, or John Mayer. And so I started taking lessons. I was kind of self-taught for a couple of years, and YouTube is amazing. So YouTube came out later
Evolution
when I got
of
older.
social media as well.
Yeah, so you can learn all kinds of stuff on YouTube now. But I started taking lessons, and I was part of this really cool program that was in my hometown where they would take all these kids that were in lessons, like drum lessons and bass lessons and guitar lessons, and they kind of make little bands out of them, which was really neat. And they'd kind of set up little gigs for us at different restaurants and stuff around the community. It was really cool.
That is super cool.
I was like in 8th grade. So that kind of opened up my eyes to, hey, there's other music out there, because we started playing 90s grunge rock like Nirvana and Blink-182, and then like we also played like Led Zeppelin, and so we'd learn all these things as like musicians taking lessons.
You're growing together at that kind of same pace.
Yeah, so they kind of the teachers that put together these groups would kind of find these songs that were kind of more challenging to learn, or a bunch of different genres, and have us play a bunch of different genres. So kind of as a teaching tool.
That is a great teaching
Yeah,
tool.
so like I said, we played like Smells Like Teen Spirit and Sweet Child of Mine and like Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin and Blink-182 and like Green Day When I Come Around and stuff. So it was like all over the place, literally. So I think
that's good for any musician, though. You need to be able to have all these different tools in your toolbox to be able to really connect as a musician to both your audience and your music as a whole. Because if you can understand the origins and also understand where other pockets of influences come from, it really can change your music entirely.
It's very true. And I mean, a lot of the artists you listen to, I'm sure, well, I know for a fact there's other artists that inspired them and got them to the sound they're at now. Excuse me. But anyway, so one of the guitar teachers that was a part of this program was called Music Notes. It was a great idea where they would kind of take all these different learners and put them together and have the teachers be like responsible for the band practices and stuff. But I had this guitar teacher who really he kind of noticed early on that I was really serious about guitar playing, and I really wanted to get better. And I practiced for hours and hours at home, and I really was starting to pick it up when I was in middle school. And so he would kind of throw out these different songs that were older songs that maybe I had never listened to. My dad knew them, but it'd be stuff that was challenging to try to kind of bring me out of my comfort zone so I'd get better. So one of the songs that he recommended I try to learn is Stevie Ray Vaughan, Little Wing, which is a cover of a Jimi Hendrix song.
Yes, beautiful version of that song.
And just craziness. And so he's like, you got to listen to the song. He was a metalhead too, but he was like, I'm telling you, you like metal, but this is gonna blow your mind. Yeah. So I heard that, and I was like, the dude has literally just a clean guitar signal sound. So for those of you who don't know, there's clean and overdriven. So when you think of overdriven or distorted, you can think of like Jimi Hendrix, like specifically the Star Spangled Banner, where he's playing and he's got all that feedback and that really gritty sound from the guitar. That's distortion or fuzz or overdrive, same thing. Clean is kind of electric guitar sounding mostly like an acoustic, almost, I guess you could say, but zero distortion at all. And he was playing super fast with no distortion. And distortion kind of masks mistakes.
Yeah, it does. It
really
can.
And that was really impressive to me. So that's kind of how I got into that. I would say Stevie Ray Vaughan. Then somebody was like, you got to listen to John Mayer. I was like, John Mayer, Your Body is a Wonderland? Him? He's like, I'm telling you, this guy's a great guitar player. He's influenced by Stevie Ray Vaughan. You got to listen to him. Here's like this little live version video where he's playing blues music. Watch it. So when I saw John Mayer playing blues, I was blown away. There's actually the first thing I saw from John Mayer that really got me interested in him as an artist was there's the Where the Light Is live in LA DVD. So it's like 2007, and he goes through all these different iterations of his music. So obviously John Mayer started off as a singer-songwriter. Everybody's heard Your Body is a Wonderland, Why Georgia, all those acoustic singer-songwriter type songs. And then later on, he moved into more soul bluesy stuff like Gravity and Slow Dancing in a Burning Room when he came out with Continuum, the album Continuum, and then he moved on past that. So this live CD that I saw started off where he was playing acoustic by himself it was almost like there was 3 bands playing. So the first one was
Evolution.
him by himself, acoustic guitar, and some of the stuff he was doing on acoustic was mind-blowing. And then he went into the full band thing, but as a trio, a blues trio, and he had all these really amazing artists with him, like Pino Palladino and Steve Jordan on drums. And they played like old blues music, like B.B. King and like 50s sounding stuff or 60s. And they covered a Hendrix song too. And then they moved into his pop stuff that was more like big band, like Waiting on the World to Change and Gravity and stuff like that. That was popular then. So when I saw that and I saw these different genres that he was playing, I was like, dang, this is what it means to be a really talented musician, to not be kind of stuck. And I think foundationally, him as a guitar player, he kind of was a blues guitar player, but that opened the door to all these different genres from there. Like I was saying, all these artists that we liked, like the Eagles or Led Zeppelin, all these famous artists, took things from old music, like Cade was saying, like Robert Johnson, way early on blues player, or like T-Bone Walker, or let's see, Albert King, or all these, or
Muddy
B.B.
Waters.
King, Muddy Waters, all these different blues players. Like if you listen to Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin, like I said earlier, that's a 12-bar blues. Or if you listen to Rolling Stones music, a lot of it's blues. Like the chord progressions and the way it's set up and the structure and stuff. So anyway, that was a long-winded answer.
No, it's not a long-winded answer at all. That is giving the detail and information in order to explain your point. And sometimes that may take 1 minute. It may take 10 minutes. That's okay.
So yeah, about later than probably sophomore year of high school was when I really discovered John Mayer as a guitar player, and it kind of opened up my mind to blues more so. And I started, like I was saying, dabbling in it when I heard Stevie Ray Vaughan and the classic rock stuff, like I was saying. But I think once I learned of John Mayer, the cool thing about John Mayer, like I said, is he's not stuck to a genre. And I learned a lot of really amazing musicians from watching interviews and stuff with him, where he's like, hey, I was inspired to write this song because of this musician. Then I'd check out that musician, and I was like, wow, that's really cool.
The rabbit hole.
The rabbit hole, exactly. So, and now if you look at, man, I sound like a total John Mayer fanboy, and I am.
You are. I'm like, that's the reason why I was brought up. You are.
If there's a lot of other great artists that we'll talk about later, but if you look at his different albums, they literally jump genre. Like he has, where he just started off like a singer-songwriter, then he had a album after that, Heavier Things, which was a little bit more electric guitar work in it, but still very poppy, still that early 2000s pop kind of sound, which was still kind of singer-songwriter.
You gotta sell, make
exactly.
money.
He was very smart in that sense too, business wise. Like,
Yeah,
hey, I'm not going to just pull out the screaming guitar solos just yet until I win their hearts. But then he moved into Continuum, which is like, I think it was 2005 for whatever, and it's very soulful, very bluesy. There's a lot of really awesome guitar work on that album. This is my favorite album by him. And then eventually he moved into like there's an album called Born and Raised, which is very Western, country Western sounding. And then after that, he came out with an album, Paradise Valley, which is very country Western. And he kind of started playing more that kind of twangy guitar sound, which was very cool. And then I got from there, when he started doing that, I started listening to country artists like Brad Paisley and Keith Urban and guys like that. And I was like, wow, those guys are amazing too. And then after that, he kind of went back to that soulful route. And anyway, he just jumps all over. And then he started playing with the Grateful Dead. And there's people that are like, he's not Jerry Garcia, but still, you can't deny the fact the dude is really talented.
No one's ever going to be Jerry Garcia. Anytime you try to replace a band member in any band.
Dead and Company. They're now Dead and Company.
That's true. You're right. So. Anytime you try to replace a musician, everyone is going to be sticklers of that.
That's
and
true.
I get it and I respect it, but you got to remember that they're doing the best that they can, bringing in their sense to it, and their skills were asked to be brought in for that reason of how good they were as a musician. I'm known for ripping into bands as well, being like, it's not the same. But,
It's very true. I remember specifically, here's a story. Post Malone. I think Post Malone's talented. Anyway, he did this, like, it was during COVID. He did this Nirvana cover
yes,
thing.
I remember this.
And he's playing electric guitar, and I'm like, dude's tone is pretty spot on, like as far as sounding like Kurt Cobain's guitar and stuff. And he got that gravelly vocals. And I sent one of the songs to Cade, and he's like, that doesn't sound anything like it. I'm like, what are you talking about?
I ripped into it.
It sounded amazing.
I ripped into it. I was really kind of in a weird spot at that point in time, and I was just like, no.
I'll say this. I am, and my wife's the same way. 'Cause she'll hear a cover and be like, that sucks. And I'm like, it was great. I'm very forgiving of musicians because I like to hear people putting themselves out there.
I'm getting a lot better about that as I'm gotten older. I had a really bad tendency of being that person with, it's not as good as the original. And you're like, I was not saying, well, what is the word I'm looking for? Not being stuck up about it, but I was like, oh man, like, oh, I'm too good for, this cover version. We all have that tendencies of things that we go through in our lives, that we see phases. And that was definitely, I had that phase. And my wife gets and yells at me all the time we're sitting in the car and a song will come on the radio. You go, hey, Katie, name that band. And she goes, Cade, shut up. I can't answer this question. Yeah, exactly. I don't care. Yeah, too. But that's part of the fun joy going back and forth. But music, it plays a huge part in our lives. It really does play that massive point to it. And you do a lot of recording stuff as well over the years. You had a band that you've played with, that you've written stuff as well, and you've been in the same room at times, and you've also done stuff separated from each other. Tell me about that setup that you use in. How do you incorporate, I know a lot of it is electronic music. How do you incorporate that style of him, the individual that you have that created the drum beats and creating the sampling, and then you doing the guitar work?
So I'll say this too. Like I was saying before, I've been in different bands. I was in like pop punk rock band before in Athens, and like a blues trio band. I've played with singer-songwriters and stuff. But after college, when I started working, I linked up with one of my buddies from high school that I used to play music with. He would play bass. He's a bass player, but he would play bass for one of our good friends, Corbett Walsh. And the only reason I say his last name too is because he has stuff up on online. So if you want to check out Corbett Walsh's music, he's a great singer-songwriter. But anyway, so he would play bass, and we all went to high school together. So later on in college, we played together. But I linked up with that bassist later on, and he kind of introduced me because he started DJing, and he got really into DJing, and he got really into the electronic music kind of scene, I guess, so to speak. And so he started dabbling with recording, because a lot of these, especially in like 2010s and above, like all these producers would come out, like Skrillex and Martin Garrix and all these different EDM producers that would, like, Martin Garrix was a young kid who like made beats in his bedroom. So, and
that's all it starts is that dedication, that commitment, and
talk about technology advancing. It's like you can have amazing mastered quality sound with just a laptop and some instruments and like audio interface, which, for those of you who don't know what an audio interface is, it is basically a means of plugging in instruments into your computer. So, for example, Cade is running this podcast using an audio interface where we got 2 microphones plugged into it, which is running into a recording software on his computer. So,
you're giving away all the secrets.
Sorry.
You're giving away the secrets.
So he kind of started learning about recording, and he started with like GarageBand. So Macs come with free recording software, GarageBand, which has got a lot of amazing resources on there. And then later on, he discovered Logic, which there's a bunch of other recording softwares out there, like Pro Tools and Ableton and Cubase.
I use Audacity.
Yeah, there's a bunch of...
there's so many programs out there.
So he got into that, and he was like, dude, we can make our own music. You got to join me. And so I started dabbling with GarageBand. I made some beats on there. I bought a little keyboard, and so I was making like electronic sounding music. And then I would put my guitar over it. And I kind of got into, for a long time, this really kind of chill, ethereal, I guess that's the word for it. Very echoey.
That's the right word.
Yeah, very echoey sounding electronic music.
I kind of feel like I'm flying sometimes when I'm listening to your music.
So I got into that and I started recording it and I sent it to him. He's like, dude, we got to start something. Then we started thinking how we could do it live and stuff. But anyway, so I linked up with him. We started writing music and we started a duo group called Zatcher. It's literally our last names put together, so it's nothing fancy in terms of the originality of the name. But
I will have this hashtagged at the end of the podcast. If you want to look them up, you can be able to find some stuff.
Yes, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, and SoundCloud. There you go. And I think Bandcamp too. I can't remember. So I linked up with him, and basically we would get together and write and kind of make a song in a couple of weeks in either my house or his house. And then later we were like, hey, power of the internet, we figured out that we could record in separate areas and send it back and forth to each other without having to meet up always. So he might get an idea for a drum beat and make it on the computer in Logic, Apple Logic, which for those of you who don't know, literally Logic is like the paid version of GarageBand. So there's a lot more stuff you can do on it.
There's a lot of good stuff out there.
So he'd make a beat, like an idea, maybe a 30-second clip, and he'd send it over to me through Dropbox, and I'd open it up, and it would pull up the program where I could literally open up what he did in Logic and open up another track and add something to it. So I'd add guitar, or I'd add a little synthesizer part, or I'd fix up little parts of the drum beat, or add like cymbal stuff that I thought would add to it, or whatever. And then we'd send it back and forth, and then at the end we'd have like a full song. And some of our music is instrumental, and then later on we started linking up with some different singers, which if you look up our stuff online, you'll hear some of those singers. But yeah, and we learned like, hey, we can link up with people across the country. Like one of the singers we had, I think she's in Wichita. So is that Kansas?
Oh man, I'm a geography teacher.
No,
I
can't remember.
I teach history. I believe that is. Yes.
Anyway, so we linked up with her, another girl that lives in Athens, and so we're all in these different areas, and we're sending stuff back and forth, and we made up whole songs, and then we learned of there's mastering software out there called like Lander. You can pay for somebody like a logarithm.
I love audiophonic.
There's logarithms, like literally a computer masters your tracks for you now. It's amazing the stuff you can do by yourself or without going to a really expensive studio and spending thousands of dollars or whatever.
If you're spending millions, that means you should be making back.
No,
millions.
I was like, not millions. We're not John Mayer here, but yeah. So my point is, we linked up, and I learned a lot about recording from that experience, and so we're actually still working on some stuff. It's been a while. I think the last song we put out was 2019. It was a Christmas cover, Carol of the Bells. So,
nice.
But it's pretty cool. So the genre is like a mixture of bluesy stuff, but also lots of echoey guitar and like U2 sounding guitars and electronic drums and synthesizers and all kinds of stuff. But
now with that setup, you're doing that for less than $1,000, really, in all honesty, because I know the Focusrite
like
costs
how much
about
money I had spent into
it.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to have
put into it.
As you said, you don't have to spend thousands and millions of dollars to be able to set this up. My Focusrite cost $125.
Used.
My microphones are literally, I think, $10 microphones that I'm using. Audacity was free for me. How much is Logic?
Logic's about, at least back when we bought it, I think it was about $300. But
not split between two people.
Yeah, so we split it because we were both using it. Sorry, Apple. I don't know if that's cool or not, but we split it between two people, so we split the cost, right? I mean, my guitar, his bass, that kind of thing. But the actual keyboard I have is called a MIDI controller, and so if it's not plugged into the software program, it doesn't make any noise. So it's USB. So by itself, doesn't make any noise, but the program has all these synthesizer, piano, any kind of keyboard sound you want. And that's where it comes. And that thing was $99. So it's only got a quarter of the number of keys, but you can change the octave. So like if you wanted to get a lower part of the piano, you could change the octave to go to the lower part, that kind of thing. So like Cade's saying, it doesn't cost a lot. And honestly, there's producers out there who, and this makes me sad, but it's true. There's producers out there that don't have instruments and make electronic music, because the programs like Logic or Ableton have what's called MIDI, and it'll have like a keyboard, and you can literally draw notes in.
Put it in place.
Put it in place. You can make chords, whatever, and just move it until it sounds good. So so the options for what you can do at your own house, in your bedroom or whatever, are endless for dirt cheap. So.
And especially with looking at pedals as well. You've got all those effects as well that you could be able just to add on, not having to spend hundreds of dollars on, which is still, I prefer listening to the sound directly through the pedal, but the apps and stuff are phenomenal.
So what Cade's referring to is, through a software program like Logic, typically they'll have like virtual guitar amps and virtual guitar effects pedals, so you can get different sounds, like if you want an echo sound or a distortion sound or a I don't know, like a wah sound or and millions of different sounds, right? Or not millions, but a lot different sounds. It's built into the program, so I can plug my guitar directly into the interface like I was talking about, just with a 1/4-inch cable, and boom, I have all these effects without having to pull out my pedal board. And trust me, I got pedals.
Yeah, you do.
I have real live pedals from playing live music, and that costs a lot of money. But yeah, so you can have that all at your fingertips just on your computer. It's pretty amazing. And it sounds pretty darn close.
And I love that capabilities with where we're at in technology as well, not just from that sense of being able to create music and be able to to be able to share it in that sense with working as a companions with a partner, is how we can be able to share it so instantly with like social media and connecting it with Bandcamp and all these other formats that are out there that people can release their music and get it heard around the world. Like, I was very surprised when I released this podcast and I have listeners in 3 different countries, and I'm like, what? Like, I'm sitting here at home and putting something out.
No, I'm not claiming to have lots of listeners on Spotify or anything, but it is pretty cool. Like, you'll have listeners that just kind of pop up, because especially if you put stuff up on Spotify or SoundCloud, or somebody listens to one thing and it brings them to another thing that brings them to another thing, which brings them to your song. Or Instagram too. Instagram, now I have a private Instagram, but you can still find me and add me, and I might let you in or whatnot. But
wow, that sounds like an exclusive club here. I haven't even been invited. I don't have Instagram.
But anyway, so for example, I post videos of me playing guitar, covering songs, playing my own stuff, whatever. And the cool thing about Instagram is you can do stories, which are like 15-second clips. If you're like, man, I just learned this cool lick, and you just throw it up there and put it out there. People can listen to it. Or you can do longer videos or whatnot. But and
you can show them to your friends every time they come over, and you're like, hey, look at this new clip I found of John Mayer doing X, Y, and Z.
Exactly. The cool part that this has opened up is different guitar players, different musicians linking up with famous people or other guitar players through this. So if I put a hashtag and somebody finds it through the logarithm or whatever it is that brings somebody to a hashtag or whatever, it's the options are endless, and you can link up with all these different people. I've seen John Mayer, for example. I know I keep going back to John Mayer, but he's pretty active on social media, and he'll be like, I found this guitar player on Instagram, just scrolling through like blues guitar hashtag, and I found this dude, and he's amazing. And so he'll shout out somebody that's like just a kid, you know? Yeah. So it's just pretty cool.
I love during the COVID process of the early,
and that's it started up before that, but COVID really brought that
blew
to the
it up.
forefront.
That's the thing I was gonna say. It brought it to the forefront of people sitting at home and being able to connect to some of their favorite musicians in that way for it. My favorite was watching the ones with I can't remember the drummer's name, the girl that was challenging all these different musicians, and no one was responding to her. And then all of a sudden she challenged Dave Grohl, and Dave Grohl responded back, and she blew up, and all these other musicians started connecting back with her. But all it takes is one little spark to go out. And shout out to Dave Grohl. That guy is one of my favorite musicians.
He's a bro. He's awesome.
Of all time. And I just finished Storyteller by him that he wrote his autobiography in that range. Oh my gosh, phenomenal book. So,
but there's like Kate's saying, I mean, the options are endless for collaboration too. There's a bunch of artists that, like, from different areas of the country, same thing. They can kind of splice together a video together, playing instruments. And I've found a lot of amazing musicians through Instagram and social media. Like, I don't know if he still has an Instagram, but there's an incredible guitar player named Mateus Asato. I think that's how you say his name, but he's amazing. There's this girl named Elise, I think it's Elise Truow, and she's incredible. Melanie Faye is another amazing guitar player. These people I would have never just found. They're just young musicians that are incredible, but now they have an outlet to get it out there.
That's the best part, is having an outlet. For so long, it used to be tape trading and stuff like that. Now it's, here we are looking in the 21st century of passing back and forth. We're going to take a pause here real quick. We'll be right back. And we're back. It's good to sometimes take a pause for the cause, as we like to say. If I had advertisements, this would be where I would plug in like a huge long ad in
like
between.
Casper mattresses, or trying to think of some of the other Spotify ads I've heard before.
Oh, who knows when it comes to that. But yeah, maybe eventually at some point I will have advertisements in this to make a little bit of
advanced auto parts.
Yeah, advanced auto parts.
O'Reilly's.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not gonna. Until you give me a sponsorship, I'm not gonna give too much of a big plug here. But I will gladly accept sponsorships, or maybe at one day I'll start a Patreon where you can be able to donate for content or something like that. I don't know. We'll see if we get there at some point in that sense for it. But Ryan, we were talking about the
music social media thing, right?
Yes. Social media, how it's connecting musicians from around the world.
So I actually was going to bring this up too, and I forgot. So another musician...
For shame. Forgetting things.
Another musician I connected to, it's actually the brother of the guy that I do Zatcher, that band with, or duo, whatever you want to call it. KZ. He goes by KZ. So another guy that kind of started out on social media. He does a lot of pop stuff, but also raps, and so I kind of linked up with him. So I have a lot of guitar on his stuff too. If you look him up on Spotify, he's got a lot more monthly listeners than I do, like thousands. Through social media, he's kind of blown up, so it's pretty awesome. But you can hear some of my guitar playing on some of his stuff. But anyway, yeah, it's just really neat to see. Like, he's a guy that I know that he's like a sales manager. But he still makes music. He's putting out content, and people are finding it. And he's not a famous musician or anything. He's trying to be, but it's just amazing how you can link those things. Those options weren't available pre-early 2000s.
No, they weren't.
I mean, really like 2010s, and really since like the dawn of social media and Instagram and all these different avenues.
Was it now Meta? Did they change it to Meta? Is that the name?
Yeah, I can't remember what they changed it to.
They're in transition period, and there's arguments and battles over all that.
I think
for
it's
sure.
Meta.
Hey, I think you mentioned to me right before I left on a trip for Iceland that you put up your stuff license free online for musicians to be able to use. Didn't you have a international person from Iceland actually use some of your music as a backdrop?
Yeah. So on YouTube. I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but I can't. But some of the Zatcher stuff with the duo between me and my buddy, it's really very atmospheric, and so
entirely is.
So any YouTubers out there that want to throw it in the background, we have a good amount of instrumental music, and I actually have some of my own solo stuff under Ryan Cherry on Spotify too, if you want to use that. But yeah, that's another cool social media thing. You can find musicians out there to use as background music, and this guy went on I guess he lived in Iceland. I'm not sure, he's from Europe or something, and he went on a trip, or he went to Iceland or whatever, and he had a really cool drone. He had all this really cool drone footage, and he found our music, and he used it as like for the background music of this drone video where he's going through all these I don't know, all the geysers and
glaciers and mountaintops and everything.
But there's like steam coming out. I don't know what you went to Iceland.
Probably a geothermal zone.
Yeah, it was really neat. And he's not the only one. There's been a couple other people. There was a guy who did this really neat time lapse video of like the sunset, and somewhere else in Europe. A lot of Europeans have found our stuff. I don't know why, but pretty cool. And it was like you could see all these trains coming by and like the sun setting, and it was really cool. So there's been a couple of those out there. There's another one where another drone footage, I think it's from the Netherlands. It's like all these big windmills. Really neat.
Oh, wow. That is pretty cool.
So if I can find those videos, I will send them to Cade, and I'm sure he can put them in the description or something.
Yeah, I'll put it in the notes if we can be able to get those up there for sure. something important to remember whenever you're putting music in the background, understand the licensing laws in order to make sure that you are not going to get a cease and assist or
the only thing we ask, I would say the only thing that we ask as musicians is, if you want to just pop our names like music by whoever in the description, that's totally cool.
Again,
just to give us a shout out.
That's for his music. Don't just grab random music and put it up there.
Make sure it's not copywritten and doesn't have a trademark, because you can get in big trouble for that.
Yeah.
Or fined. Yeah. So be careful.
But definitely reach out to musicians, and sometimes
there are plenty of musicians out there that would be totally cool with you using their music royalty free. So
yeah, exactly. Reach out. That's the key thing. Like, reach out, ask, and if you don't ask, you don't know.
Yep.
In that sense, for sure. Now, before we start going into the next topic that I'm really curious about, because you've helped me a lot with this one as well, is I think I know the answer, but are you a Fender guy? Or are you a Gibson guy? Where's your loyalty?
I kind of gave it away at the beginning, but I'm a Fender guy. So I have a Fender Stratocaster and I have a Fender Telecaster, which is kind of it's a very versatile guitar as well, just like the Stratocaster. But a lot of times you see it with country music. So if you're like, what's a Fender Telecaster? Brad Paisley always plays a Fender Telecaster, so, or Keith Urban typically. So if you see one of those, that's what it is. But I've played Gibsons. I worked at a music store right when I got out of college, when I was looking for a job, and I played a lot of really cool Gibsons. I really liked an SG. That's really cool. The Les Paul, this might be blasphemous for some people, but I'm not a big fan. It's super heavy. And like, you got to get the right one, or else, like, it's amazing how guitar to guitar they sound different.
Oh yeah.
So like,
every little detail changes the sound of a guitar, and especially like how your comfort is with feeling the guitar, and how the fretboard is with what type of wood, what kind of, every setup is different.
Now I'll say I gravitate towards the Fender stuff because I like the sounds I can get, especially Stratocasters. I like the very crystal clear cleans and stuff I can get. And especially, like, I'm getting into kind of funk stuff now. There's a guy named Corey Wong that I really like, and you can really get some cool funky sounds out of Strats and Fender products. But they also have other guitars that I'm not super picky. I mean, like, I have a bunch of different guitar company guitars if I could. Like, I'd have Gibson.
Money adds up, and we only have so much.
Yes, I'd have Fenders, Gibson, Gretsch's, boutique guitars, whatever. I'd have it all if I could, but if I had to pick anyone, it'd be a Fender.
That's something right now, the boutique guitars and cymbals and all kinds of musical instruments.
And yeah.
It's blown up, and that's really cool that's...
kind of like breweries.
Yeah, it's creating a whole new market out there, and I think it's amazing that we're in a really interesting transitional time period of music as a result of that.
Very true.
Now, speaking of transitions, here we go. I'm all about, the awkward or sometimes really quick transition here. Yeah, exactly. Fast forward. We're going to go into, you are very passionate about working out and being kind of like a personal trainer in that sense for it too, because you take care of your body. You've had to. And that sense for it. So
I'll say this,
go ahead.
Just to preface, I'm not a personal trainer. I don't have a certification in personal training. I'm looking into that in the future, but yeah, just wanted to throw that out there.
My personal trainer.
I'd like talking about it. Yeah. And teaching people about it if they're interested, which my wife is definitely not. So anyway.
So again, as you said, you have a lot of great knowledge that you can be able to share with us about this field. Let's dive into this. Let's
okay.
Have some talking about this here. You came actually from the gym to do this recording.
I did.
So that's actually kind of funny.
Smelly and disgusting.
No, it's dedication. That's the one thing that for
leg
sure.
Day.
Whenever today was leg day.
That was terrible. I mean, in a good way.
So why is it important to work out, and what are some major misconceptions that you find when people get into working out?
Well, I think physical activity in general, for obvious reasons, is good for our health. Heart, everything, weight management, all of the above. But I gravitate towards resistance training and weightlifting primarily, but that's not the only thing that you have to do to be healthy, obviously. So, I mean, I think it's just important for longevity and overall health.
Now, there's a lot of terms that come in play with a fit body.
Yes.
A lot of people look out and look at, oh my gosh, that guy's jacked and he's got all these crazy muscles. And there's that person that, is a size 2 or size 0. And
Yeah.
we look at all these models. What really is a fit body?
So I'll say there's obviously a bazillion ways to exercise. Exercise doesn't mean you have to be weightlifting. It doesn't mean you have to be cycling. It doesn't mean you have to be a runner. It doesn't mean you have to be a CrossFitter or a yoga person. Like those are all ways of exercising. So I think with those, you see a bunch of different body types, obviously. So a runner might be skinnier. A weightlifter, depending on what their goals are, might be a lot bigger, have a lot more muscle mass. Person who does yoga is going to be trimmer or whatever, but not necessarily. I mean, everybody's body is different. I think fitness is defined in a lot of different ways. Fitness could be strength. Fitness could be your body composition. Fitness could be, do you have endurance to do the things you want to do in life? Do you feel good? So it could be a multitude of things. Just because somebody has a six pack, for example, this is a great, I can't even think what to say there, but just because somebody has a six pack or low body fat percentage doesn't mean they're healthy.
That's a true statement.
Yeah. So like if you ask any like for example, natural or enhanced bodybuilder who steps on stage and they're at, I don't know, 4% body fat, if you were to take their blood work, they're not necessarily healthy, because they're so depleted and all that kind of stuff, but they look amazing, right? They look top level, but that's not necessarily healthy per se. So I think somebody might look at that and go, oh my God, they're super shredded. So they're super healthy, but not necessarily. Maybe they're low iron because they've been on a really low calorie diet or whatever. So anyway.
No, that's a very good point to think of. That's the reason why I asked that question, because we do, as a society, we've had for our since societies began, is we judge people by the outside appearance of saying if they're fit, if they're unfit, and such. It's kind of like if you ask a bodybuilder to run a marathon, and you judge them off of that,
they're not fit.
No, yeah, exactly.
Unless they specifically train for that at the same time.
We have our own determination on that. And it's good thing though that I'm curious on your thoughts for this one is, what is a good way of adding in these different types like resistance training, weightlifting, yoga, adding and mixing together? Because I know you have to work out certain body parts at a time in order to have a good regimen in place. Because if you overwork one part of your body, you're going to cause a lot of damage. Mm-hmm. How would you recommend an audience member to create a regimen that could be of a variety of different things?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously you can do a lot at once. I do think there is... Sometimes people want to do it all, and maybe they should focus on a couple things at a time or one thing at a time before dabbling in everything, so to speak. So, I mean, it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to get stronger, then obviously you need to lift heavy weight to get stronger. So if you want to be a power lifter, then obviously you need to squat, bench, and deadlift and lift heavy. But if your goal is to be able to run long distances, then you need to run. If your goal is to just be generally healthy, then you can do a combination of things. Resistance training is very good for your body from a standpoint of, obviously it builds muscle, but it's also good for your bones and your joints and building up resilience. And I mean, it's just great. I think there's a lot of great things that have to do with resistance training, but you can combine things. But I think a lot of people tend to go, in order for it to be fit, I got to do all of these things. And that's not necessarily true. So I think you can periodize those things. There's a buzzword. Periodize those things over time. So maybe you shift goals over time. But I think just like anything, you don't want too many irons in the fire at once. I think you want to kind of pick and really think, what's my goal right now? So for example, for me right now, my goal is to gain more muscle. So the way I'm setting up my training is to do that. So, but if I was trying to, I don't know, lose body fat or train for a marathon or get better at beach volleyball, then I would change the way I'm training, obviously. So I think people can pick too many things at once, but I don't know if that answers your question at all.
No, it does for sure. Because all depends.
So it all depends on what your goal is.
Exactly.
You gotta really brainstorm. What is my ultimate goal? So, and first of all, you got to find something exercise wise that you're interested in. Weightlifting's not for everybody. Just like running is not my thing at all. Running is not my thing. But do I have to run to be healthy? No, I don't have to. There's a million other ways to be healthy. So, but for the runners that love it, it's good for them. So you kind of have to think, what are my goals realistically? Realistic goals, that's a big thing. What do I enjoy doing? What can I realistically stick to? That's the biggest thing. Because if you're not into it, you're not going to stick to it. So
True.
And that also goes with like how many times a week you exercise or train or whatever. Whether you join a gym, whether you do work out at home or whatever it is. Like being successful is sticking with whatever you're going to choose. So you got to pick something that you know you're going to stick with.
And that's a lifelong lesson of,
not just exercise, but yeah.
And you mentioned in gym, no gym, with COVID kind of hitting, and that changed a lot of people's viewpoints of how to have a gym at home. What is your misconceptions that people have with the gym and what you can be able to do in terms of pandemic fitness that has popped up for you that you've started to realize?
Yeah, I think everybody, I kind of fell in this trap too. It's like, oh crap, my goal is building muscle, hypertrophy, so to speak, which means building muscle. So what am I going to do if I don't have weights? If I don't have heavy weights around me, like if I don't have access to the gym, what's going to happen? But there's a lot of research now pointing to the fact that, hey, you don't need a lot of weight to build muscle. They've actually done a lot of studies recently that kind of compared a lower rep range, let's say like 6 reps, and a repetition being like, let's say you're doing, I don't know, a bench press, which is literally where you have a bar, you lower it to your chest, and then you press it away. So that would be the lowering plus the concentric, which is the pushing away part. That's 1 rep. So let's say you pick a weight, you can do that for 6 times, right? They suggest that, and don't quote me on this, but from what I've read,
We're recording, so it's being quoted.
Yeah, that's true. So from what I've read and podcasts I've listened to from different people like Eric Helms and Chris Barakat and these people and Brad Schoenfeld and these big names in the exercise science realm, there's a lot of research now that points to, hey, that 6 rep super heavy bench press versus 30 rep push-ups, because obviously there's less resistance there. You can do more, build a similar amount of muscle. Not strength, that's the difference. So your goal might have to shift during a time of a lay away from the gym. Like if you really want to be a power lifter and lift really heavy weights, you might have to have a little bit of a mindset shift if it's in a lockdown, because you're not going to be able to have that specificity of doing super heavy lifts at home, obviously. So, but in terms of just sheer building muscle, you can do it in a variety of rep ranges with body weight, with weight, like external load, whatever. So I think a lot of people figured that out during COVID because they had to get creative and like, okay, I want to train my chest. I can do push-ups. Maybe push-ups are too easy. Maybe I'm getting like above 30 reps because there is evidence that suggests that maybe at a certain level, you don't get as much hypertrophy from super high reps, like past 30. But anyway, maybe it's too easy and I'm progressing on that. So maybe I have resistance bands and I put those on my back while I'm doing the push-ups and make there be more resistance on the push-up. Or maybe I elevate my feet and that's harder. Or maybe I do a one-arm push-up. Or maybe I do a push-up on gymnastics rings. Or I do... So there's a million ways of making things harder or being creative. So like thinking of legs here. I can't squat without heavy weights, but I can do single leg stuff. I can put my foot up on a couch and hold something like a backpack with books in it, and do.
Or you can pick up one of your child.
Or your evil cat, right? So anyway, my point being, you can find ways to challenge yourself and challenge your muscles and challenge your body at home. So I think a lot of people figured that out during COVID. Like, hey, like for me, I was like, oh, what's going to happen? Now, granted, I did have some dumbbells at home, but they weren't heavy. I was like, I figured out that as long as I was pushing my body to a point where I'm close to failure, which means failure meaning like you can't perform another rep or you can't perform the movement any longer because your body's so fatigued. So the closer you are to failure, that's where you want to be for muscle building. So anyway, you can get close to failure with a lot of movements. As long as you're close there, you're going to maintain your muscle. So I was pleasantly surprised that I was able to maintain my muscle with like body weight movements and very light weights at home, and figuring out really creative ways to demolish myself, so to speak. But that's one thing. And now, granted, the runners out there, they're like, lockdown, I can do it. I can still run.
Whatever. Yeah.
Doesn't bug me.
Don't have to worry worrying about getting hit by cars.
But yeah,
now.
I mean, weightlifting's my thing, and the bodybuilding type stuff, even though I have no aspirations of being a competitive bodybuilder, but that's the type of training I like. For those people, I'm speaking to them saying like, hey, you're not going to lose your gains from that kind of thing. You might learn ways to manipulate your body in ways that, or like try different things you never tried. So like I was saying, like I bought a pair of gymnastics rings for like $15 during the lockdown, and I hung them up on like a door pull-up bar, and I did push-ups off them, and lack of stability, super hard. So like, you just get creative, but you can still push your body. And anyway,
I had a friend reach out who was trying to figure out about trying to find, can you help me find some weights, or can you help me find something to be able to do some lifting with? And I was talking to a friend trying to ask for them if they knew anybody about weights, because I know they worked out. And he goes, dude, tell them to go to Home Depot, like do an order a bucket and order
cement.
Gravel. No, order gravel.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like $10 and you get like 40 pounds.
Heck
And
yeah.
he's like separate it out between the $2. And I'm like, that is genius.
A lot of people did that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. You just had to
You
become
can do curls
creative.
with a bucket of cement.
Yeah, just become creative.
I mean, yeah, you get super creative, and like weight is weight at the end of the day.
True.
You know what I mean? And obviously, a machine is going to be way easier to use than other type of stuff you might figure out in your house. But still, you can find ways to work the same muscle groups with just limited equipment. So resistance bands also were really, I use those a lot.
I love me some good resistance bands.
Now, like I used to think, oh man, the resistance bands, that's like your aunt in front of like Gene Simmons or something. Like
Gene Simmons?
Not Gene
Wow.
Simmons. Richard Simmons.
Like,
Gene Simmons. Not Gene Simmons. Richard Simmons. Like, like doing aerobics, 80s aerobics or whatever. But no, I mean, if you got a heavy duty set of resistance bands, you can do a ton. You can replicate a lot of gym exercises. But
now, as your body changes over time, what do you recommend for those that, it affects your body as you age? How do you recommend people approach working out as different stages of their life?
Okay. So you can kind of look. So I'm going to, because this is my area of knowledge, I'm going to speak to people that want to build muscle and
do it,
like weightlift, right? Now you can pair that with cardio and stuff like that too, but that's a whole different realm. So obviously when you get started, you're a beginner or a novice. So that's one phase of your training career. So I like to think of this as a lifelong thing, hopefully, right?
The marathon.
Yeah. So throughout your training career or your training life, so to speak, because obviously there's going to be a day when no, you can't do it anymore. So, I mean, there's those anomalies out there like Jack LaLanne, who was lifting weights into his 90s. But, yeah, I mean, when you're a beginner, you don't need as much stimulus as you do as you get more advanced, right? And then as you get older, you have to think, you're taking into consideration joint health and that kind of thing too, and you can figure out ways around that. But so, like when you get started, a lot of people are like, man, I got to do what I see all these like celebrities doing, like the superhero celebrities or the bodybuilders or whatever. No, you're just getting started. You can literally think about it this way. if you did one set of every exercise, like biceps, legs, quads, hamstrings, glutes, back, whatever, one set, that's more than you did before. So your body's obviously going to adapt, right? So I'm not saying do one set, but you don't need as much when you just start out. And so a lot of people are like, I got to do all this stuff. I got to jump right in like gung-ho, right? But
it's building a habit.
Yeah, and if I could speak to beginners, because I've learned my lesson from many injuries, don't do that. Start off slow. It's a marathon, not a sprint, like you said. I mean, start off slow, learn foundational stuff, learn about how your body moves, the biomechanics of your body, like my elbow flexes, it extends, my knee flexes, my knee extends, like all that kind of different stuff. My hip extends. There's, like abduction and adduction, shoulder adduction, hip adduction, vice versa, right? The different ways our body moves. And I think that really helped me a lot because everybody's body's different and you can learn what different postures and different things work for you. So, I would say when you're just getting started out, keep it simple. Like, keep it simple, pick a few exercises, get really good at them, and then you can progress as you go. And then when you become an intermediate, you can add more, you can do more complex stuff. Then when you get more advanced, and so on and so forth. And then at some point, like, now I'm only 30, but I got kinks. I got like back stuff and I hurt my neck before and different stuff. So I have to approach the way I weightlift now differently than I would when I just started or when I was injury free when I was young, right? Or I'm still young, but when I was in my 20s or whatever. So
when your body healed a little faster.
Exactly. So, and that kind of speaks to like, as you get older, you kind of learn, all right, this doesn't feel good for me. This particular exercise doesn't feel good for me. And this is something I wanted to talk about. Just because people do a certain exercise doesn't mean you have to do it. It doesn't mean it's good for your body. For example,
Gotcha.
And there's going to be like one dude that's like a power lifter and it's like, I squat, bench, and deadlift, and that's all I do. And nobody can say anything bad about those movements. But anyway.
Everyone has their own
exactly.
opinion.
There'll be some guy that's like, this guy's a moron for saying this. But anyway, for example, the barbell squat, that's where you take a 45-pound barbell, right? And you load it up with plates, you put it on your back, and you squat. That's like the quote-unquote golden leg movement, right? So like all of the bodybuilders that you've heard of, like Arnold and Frank Zane and all those guys, they did barbell squats. And I mean, that's like, everybody's like, that's the king of leg exercises, right? But there's a billion different ways to train the same movement pattern. You can do a leg press, you could do a hack squat, which is a machine squat. You could do a goblet squat, which is like when you hold a dumbbell in front of you and you squat. You could do lunges. There's a bazillion ways to train. My point being, there's a bazillion ways biomechanically to train the same muscle functions or muscle actions, I should say. And you just kind of, like for me, I've picked ways that are more comfortable for me because the barbell back squat, the one I just explained, hurts my back, my lower back, because I guess the load, way my femur length is, whatever, just is not comfortable for me. It never has been. I've been injured on it so many times. I'm like, what is the risk to reward here for me? Like, I want to build muscle. I'm not a power lifter. I'm not competing in this lift. Power lifter, for those of you who don't know, they have, like a bodybuilder has a competition, a power lifter has competitions around the big three movements, which are, for powerlifting, the squat, which is the one I just described, where you put a heavy barbell on your back, you load it with plates. The bench, which is, like I explained earlier, that's the bench press where you bring a bar down to your chest and you press it away from you. You've probably seen that. If you look up bench or bench press on Google, you'll see what I'm talking about. Or the deadlift, same thing. You pull heavy weight off the ground. So those are the three big movements. But so a lot of people are like, those are the best movements. But they are for some people. They aren't for other people. So, and you kind of, as you get older, like you asked about, as you get older, you kind of learn, all right, this one works for me, this one doesn't work for me. And you learn ways to train around those things and work the same muscle groups with exercises that are more comfortable for you and that are going to allow you to do this for a long time and not get jacked up.
And so listen to your body.
Yeah, so that's the big thing is, like I said, I wish somebody had told me, like, hey, now granted, when you're just starting out, try those foundational lifts. You know what I mean? Those are the tried and true ones. Try them. See how you feel with them. Try to progress with them for a while. And then gauge it from there. Because you're going to learn over time what works for you and what doesn't, and how your body responds and recovers from certain things. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to learn over time. You're going to get kinks. You're going to get injuries. And you're going to be like, okay, that's no longer worth it to me anymore. So, as you get older, I think you start being more thoughtful about the things you do. If weightlifting is your thing. So just being more mindful about how your body recovers from certain things. How many days? This is another good thing as you get older in training. How many days a week works for you? Can you realistically recover from like if you're a super busy person with a lot of stressors in your life, going to the gym 6 days a week and doing like a crazy hard training regime may not be right for you because of all the other stressors you have in your life. Your body's probably not going to be able to recover well from that, and that's probably going to lead to a big injury down the road because you're not going to be able to recover. So you have to think about those things too, and you don't really know how your body recovers or responds to different things until you get farther into this thing, if that makes sense.
It does. It's the whole idea of, as I said a second ago, of listening to your body. Your body's going to tell you what it needs, what it doesn't need, because some days you may come home and be like, wow, like I'm really thirsty. But your body's trying to tell you that it needs water or something along those lines to it. And if your shoulder hurts, maybe, again, it may be your muscles growing, but it may also be you may have tweaked something and you need to back off a little bit. Mm-hmm. Is there like a specific sign that say someone should look for of, hey, this is like a pain like you need to stop, or this is a good pain?
Yeah, I mean, obviously sharp joint pains are not good. No, I try not to say good, bad, because there's a lot of nuance to that. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of things recently, like as far as physical therapy and talking to, I just went to a Christmas party with my wife. My wife is a speech therapist and she works with physical therapists and OTs and stuff. And I was just talking to somebody she works with that's a physical therapist. And there's this camp of physical therapists, and I hope nobody is a physical therapist listening and being like, he's a moron, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But from my understanding of listening and reading about this stuff and talking to physical therapists that I know, it seems like there's like two camps of physical therapy as far as like that, what you're asking.
Okay.
There's going to be these people, there's the physical therapists that believe in this biopsychosocial model, which is there's a multitude of factors that contribute to pain. There's mental factors, there's stress, there's all these different things. Your body might be super sensitive to that right now, but it doesn't mean it's bad. Then there's the other camp that's like posture, or you need to cut that movement out totally forever, or like, well, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but anyway, so there's like these two camps there's like one that's more like posture, be careful, and there's the other one that thinks it's more like up here in your head. Now, I think that there's a combination of those things, and I think what happens when you get injured sometimes, and I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but
you have got injured.
I have gotten injured. I think and I've talked to therapists that think this too, because I had physical therapy and I've tried a couple different ones. I think that your body becomes super sensitive. It's almost like a car alarm going off. So I think your body's like, oh, I've been hurt doing that before, so I'm going to set off this alarm, right? And so
self-preservation.
Yeah. So it's like, for example, my lower back, I'll still tweak it sometimes, and it's like that was an injury a long time ago, but it's like that car alarm going off. So it's like reminding me, hey, you've been injured here before. And I mean, maybe it's healed. Obviously it's healed since then, but I think my body's become sensitive to certain movements. And I think over time, and there's I can't physical therapists who think this too, that you should expose yourself back to those movements over time gradually. So like
Interesting.
So if like overhead pressing or moving your arm overhead hurts, gradually work your way up to that over a long period of time. And your body's going to slowly get desensitized to it. And that car alarm is going to get quieter and quieter and quieter and quieter. That's kind of how I look at it. But I know there's others that do too, but hopefully I'm not speaking for them. But
again, there's so many different opinions and stuff out there. It's good just to become a little knowledgeable for it.
But I do think, obviously, if something causes sharp pain, stay away from it, at least for a little bit.
Yeah.
And like I said, like let's say, like if you hurt yourself doing, I don't know, push-ups, does it mean you're never going to be able to do a push-up again? It just means maybe, hey, like right now, doing a full range of motion push-up really jacks my shoulder up. So maybe I'm going to do a half range of motion push-up. I'm just going to go down a half of the way instead of going down all the way. And you might play around with that and go, hey, that doesn't hurt if I only go half. Well, guess what? You're still training the push-up, not full range of motion, but you can ride in that range of motion for a little bit because it doesn't cause you pain. That's the ticket. It's like, that's how you can train around injuries. You go, okay, that hurts, but hey, this doesn't hurt. So I'm going to do this for a little bit. So that's the easiest example. So it's like over time, like, okay, this half, or maybe it's so severe that's like, oh, I can only get a quarter of the way down, but hey, you're still training what you want to train. You want to get back to push-ups. So, okay, you do some quarter rep push-ups for a little bit and you're barely moving at all, but then over time it gets a little lower and then it gets a little lower and then without pain. And then over time you're able to go back to normal range of motion without pain because your body gets desensitized to it.
The step by step process.
Yeah. So obviously pain is your body's way of telling you, like, I know, like I was saying, I think there's mental factors in that too, like that contribute to pain, but like you can be hypersensitive to pain, I think, if you are somebody that has chronic pain. But yeah, that's your body's way of saying, hey, like maybe don't do that. So for right now, and then like find a way of working what you're trying to work that doesn't hurt, and that if it doesn't hurt, go for it.
There you go.
That's what I think. So
now, Ryan, I don't mean to cut you off here, but I know you have a commitment that you need to get to, and I want to honor that. And with that, I want to say thank you for coming and spending time with me. One last little thing before you go on it. Who would you say has been some really influential people in your life that you just want to drop in there before we kind of ride off?
You mean as far as like music is concerned?
No, like people in your life, like around you.
Around me, my wife. My wife, she's amazing, and she's extremely supportive of all these hobbies that I enjoy, and things that I enjoy, like working out and music. And my dad and my mom, I think that they were models of being healthy and being fit and taking care of your body, because growing up, they always exercised. My dad was into weightlifting and that kind of thing. My dad was in weightlifting and that kind of thing. And my mom, she always exercised and ran and did different things. So I got to see that when growing up, that, hey, it's good to take care of your body and be healthy. And I'm trying to think. And then in my career, I have friends, I don't know if I'm allowed to say their names, but you and
coworkers.
I have coworkers that have been very influential in my career as a teacher as well. I won't name any names, but I have a really good friend who was a teacher, my mentor. Two really good friends. I have a teacher that was a mentor to me, and she's amazing. She's since moved away from the school I'm at now. And then the teacher that used to be in my room, I was a para for him. He was extremely influential in the way I teach now. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and the key thing there is with those relationships, we have kept them. We still meet, we hang out,
yes,
and stuff. Like right now, we're outside of school and we're hanging out on that. I'm going to let you go. Thank you for coming in and spending time with me. It has been a pleasure. It's been an honor to have you come on this podcast and spend the last hour and 30 minutes with us here.
No problem. Can I make a quick plug?
Make a quick plug. Give me hashtags, give me emails, give me stuff that you want put in here.
I guess music-wise, you can find my music on Spotify, Ryan Cherry, or Zatcher, or you can find me playing guitar with KZ. He's actually on Spotify and all the different music places too. Apple.
Is it the letter K and Z or how's it
K
spelled?
and Z? Yeah. So K, I guess. I think it's K space Z, or maybe it's together. I don't know. It's one of those. You can find us on SoundCloud too. Also, and then in terms of fitness, if anybody's interested in programs or like how to get started, or having like beginner programs, or even if you're farther along in this lifting game than programs, I'm interested in doing that in the future, and I've done that for a couple of friends, including Cade, for different things.
It's been great.
So if you're interested, you can reach out to Cade, or you can reach out to me at cherryryan91@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to do that for you.
And my email is Cade, CADE, @learningfromfriends.com. So you can check us out I'm on, I think, really most honestly, 90% of all platforms. I recommend this to your friends on any previous episodes. Go through, listen to. Every episode may not be for you, but there may be one or two that's out there. If you like the podcast, hit subscribe, hit like, leave comments, because it's able to move us up the charts on being able to be heard everywhere. Send me emails.
And also these, everything we've talked about today is all opinions of myself and Cade. So obviously take what you will with a grain of salt, and don't sue us.
True statements. But yeah, it can be found on all these different platforms. Reach out if you have questions. That's what we're here for. I'm only on Facebook. I haven't really branched out into other social media realms because it's not my cup of tea yet. Maybe one of these days I'll get there. But remember, as you leave out here, as my mantra that I'm love teaching with and working with, is remember to let your curiosity fly high. I am Cade Curtis from Learning from Friends.